Since 1980, there's been literally hundreds of drugs developed specifically for adults. In that same adults with cancer, cancer drugs. In that same time frame, since 1980, there's been 6 drugs developed for kids in that time frame. So we need to do better for them. They deserve better because kids aren't little adults. Their bodies are developing differently, and they need different, less toxic, more targeted treatments. So that's how I entered this world, and we'll continue doing this for the rest of my life to honor my son and to help others.
Welcome to Fundraising Events. During each episode, we will chat with an influencer in the event industry who has been instrumental in helping nonprofits raise more funds. Our goal is to share helpful tips, tricks, and stories that will empower you to raise more with your future events. Now, a little bit about our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by GiveSignup, RunSignup, your fundraising event technology experts. Next time you have an event, try GiveSignup, RunSignup. Whether it's a run, walk, ride, golf tournament, gala, or fundraising campaign, raise more, save time easily with the GiveSignup, RunSignup nonprofit-focused platform. Get started for free today at givesignup.org. I'm your host, Brian Jenkins, and I'm joined today by Oscar Ortiz. Welcome to Fundraising Events, Oscar.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
So I have been excited to talk to you. As you mentioned in our email back and forth, you love to talk. So this is great. I actually titled this one beforehand because I know in speaking to you, I actually topicked this one, the power of passion, because that's how I see you in my head is someone who is incredibly passionate. And so maybe with that in mind, tell us a little bit about yourself and SebastianStrong.
Again, thanks for having me, Brian. And passionate, that's an accurate word, although sometimes I think there's a fine line and people can say annoying, but I will defer with passion. That's my main driver. I came into the nonprofit world, at least SebastianStrong did, a little over 5 years ago. My then middle son, Sebastian, who was 15 at the time, was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, and spent 14 months battling, and unfortunately we lost him in December of 2016. And it was through that journey that I learned so much about the lack of funding, the lack of innovation, particularly in the pediatric cancer space. Sebastian's only treatment option, no matter where we would have gone in the world, was over 40 years old, and not effective. So I still feel a void that I need to carry some of the good that he would have done in this world. And so we started the foundation with the desire to make change, to honor him in some way, but not really knowing what we'd be able to do. And here we are, I guess 4.5 years into it, and we've raised close to $3 million for pediatric cancer research, making a difference, creating, I think we've funded 11 projects at this point, all that have the potential to have another option, because that's ultimately what this is about, to help parents, for kids and parents, not end up where we did, where you hear those words from the doctors that there's nothing else they can do. So we've done this primarily through events, Brian. I think some of it is just using my passion to create awareness, because it is something that I think a lot of people just don't know much about. I didn't know much about childhood cancer. I would have thought prior to entering this world that between St. Jude and every other commercial on TV seems to be a cancer drug commercial, that this wasn't a problem, and couldn't be further from the truth. There's nearly 17,000 kids that are diagnosed every year in the United States, and 1 in 5 of those children won't make it. We've got to be better. We've done a ton of stuff at the adult level, and I'll leave you with this stat. Since 1980, there's been literally hundreds of drugs developed specifically for adults. In that same adults with cancer, cancer drugs. In that same time frame, since 1980, there's been 6 drugs developed for kids in that time frame. So we need to do better for them. They deserve better, because kids aren't little adults. Their bodies are developing differently, and they need different, less toxic, more targeted treatments. So that's how I entered this world, and will continue doing this for the rest of my life, to honor my son and to help others.
Yeah. And so maybe you could give us a little bit of background. Did you and your son both have some interest in endurance events?
Yeah. I'm on sabbatical now, as I've shared with you. But yeah, I started running at age 35. I'm 50 now. I started getting into running. I ran in high school, that kind of stuff, but got back into it to get back in shape, and got into it, started running marathons and got into triathlons, did an Ironman, and right around that time is when Sebastian was, I guess, 10 when I did my first Ironman, and he started to get into it. So lo and behold, a year later, we were running a half marathon together. He was 12 years old, about 12 years old, running a half marathon. I had to sign a special waiver to get him on there. And continued to run together. We did a couple of Ragnars. We ran from Miami to Key West together. Again, the youngest person in the race, but he really came to enjoy running and the camaraderie, and was running in high school cross country his freshman and sophomore year when he was diagnosed during cross country season. And that was it. But it was special because it was our time, and it's a really healthy way to. When we trained for the half marathon, I remember, the first time we ran, I think I ran 5 miles with him, and I didn't tell him how long. I just wanted to see, and he kept asking, because kids are curious. They're like, "Oh, how long we've run? How do you feel?" I feel fine. Okay, then we haven't run that long. Until we got him, and he kept annoying. So I said, "Don't ask me any more questions. We're just gonna go for a long run." And then, because he wasn't sure if he was ready, he was always asking, "When will I be ready? When will I know if I'm ready for the half marathon?" So one day we went out, and I think we ended up running 11 miles, and I didn't tell him. We just talked the whole time. And he's like, "How do you?" I asked him how he felt. He said, "I feel pretty good, Dad." I said, "Well, you ran 11 miles." He goes, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, we've got this." And then we went out and ran the Miami half marathon in January of 2012. It was a pretty amazing experience to share that with him.
Absolutely. So with that background of understanding that you guys had this shared time doing endurance events, it seemed kind of natural as you started the foundation in honor of your son and for children's cancer that you would gravitate towards these endurance events. So maybe talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges of you've been to the races, you've run in the races, but then putting together an event where you're trying to get people to fundraise.
Yeah, it's very, very different than as a participant.
Mm-hmm.
When you flip, when you get on the other side, you recognize, oh, we've got, our races have had right around between 900 and 1,000 people the 3 years we were able to have them in person. It's overwhelming. There's so many variables that you don't think about that are important for the race experience. So, and I don't have a professional background in that space. I'm not an event planner. That's not been my wheelhouse. So it's all been learning. So there's a good running community down here in South Florida. So I plugged in with several sort of leaders, people who are got experience and connections, and that was really, really helpful in avoiding potential pitfalls.
Mm-hmm.
Although one of them that I did, and this is not a patronizing comment, but how I came to find you guys is we tried to use our CRM system the first year to have registrants for the race, and that was a disaster. It didn't pull the data out in the way we needed to. All of a sudden, we had to go back manually and get ages, so people were in the right age categories, shirt sizes. It was just a disaster. So outside of that, it was really just it went fairly well, but it was challenging. It takes a lot of people. It takes a lot of volunteers. A lot of people are really willing to help.
Yeah. So getting into specifics of peer-to-peer fundraising, did you find any challenges in getting people to peer-to-peer fundraise, or were people pretty motivated from the beginning to kind of chip in and do their part?
I think people are well intentioned, but just some people won't. They almost have to be handheld too far through the process, and I still see it now. There's just different kinds of people that really, they say they're going to do it, they get engaged and jump into it and are really effective with it. I've made it a point always to try to write a little story, a little entry, almost as a third person to help people say, hey, this is a friend of mine, and his son knew my son, whatever it might have been, to find the parallel, just to make it easier for people. So it really is just, and I found that is helpful, but there's still people that you got to browbeat a little and be like, come on, I need you to do it. But others take tremendous pride. And one of the things that I found that is, and this is kind of a natural when you step back and think about it, is when you get competitive people fundraising, people who are going to be doing a race and also fundraising, it's just another level of competition. And you can have, when you can get those personalities, it can be really effective. But the ease of them registering and them soliciting is critical. Is critical for the success of it. If it's clunky, it's much harder for people to engage, and it's too easy for them to say, forget it, I'll just write you a check. And
right. And that's it's only one check.
Right.
And
we're grateful for it. And I want to make sure I am grateful for the check, but it's for us, it's beyond the check. What I try to tell people is, all things being equal, if you raise $500 through 10 $50 donations or one $500 donation, particularly for us, awareness is so critical. So those are, I'd rather have $400 in donations with 8 people than one donation of 500. I know that may seem awkward to people, but the reality is the potential by bringing new people into the fold and having new people understand the challenges the foundation faces and how they can play a role in helping is so much more valuable down the line for me. That's been my experience, to have 8 new people who would hear the story and say, wow, I'd like to help out there more. That goes much further than the single donor.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that in the pandemic has become more clear, is that awareness is a line item that's not accounted for when you put together an event budget. Because if you do a really big event, even if the event was break even from a production side, the awareness side, the sponsorship side, the large donor opportunities, all the things that come afterwards, from potentially getting 3,000 people, including spectators, to your event.
Right.
It is very, very hard to get the same with virtual.
Yes,
you can be more effective with your dollars, but your awareness goes down a lot.
Yeah, it's much more challenging, and particularly because I've also found that events, like a 5K is a gateway for a lot of folks to get to know you, because it's not a big investment. There's so many other ways. There's the blind, give me money, you get a link, help support the cause. Less personal. You don't get to see the folks. You don't get to interact. You don't get to have an experience per se. Then you have larger galas or more formal events that tend to be expensive. So I found that 5Ks are really the price point's $25, $30. You get a nice shirt, you get some swag after the race. And if you make it a fun event, people will associate that. I had a good time at that event. And obviously we have a moment to address the participants and volunteers, and that's our job to make an impactful statement and share our story, and hopefully getting them to understand that while we appreciate you being part of this race, this is bigger. We want you to be part of this movement and trying to help kids facing cancer. And I think that's been sorely missed since the pandemic. Absolutely.
And what type of feedback, and you do a lot of different type of fundraising. I mean, we've talked a little bit about the 5K, but you've also done some teams for Ragnar, and I think you've even had a team that does the Dolphins ride, right?
Yep.
So in these different types of fundraising that you've done, what type of feedback have you received? Is there anything that stuck out to you?
I think one of the things that's made it easier is when you can do a lot of this stuff through text. If there was one thing that comes to mind is the ease of which someone can donate. You need to make donations easy. One click, and when these systems that more and more can populate your contact info. So it's easy. You just press a couple of buttons and you move forward. I think that has been really helpful for us, because people need to be able to act quickly, and we're an impatient society. If I need to wait to get this done, so many people like, all right, in one ear out the other, I'm off to the next thing. And then, as I said earlier, I think creating a message as the executive director of the foundation, I need to make it easy for them as well, in terms of here's what you can communicate. Here are a couple of samples. I just shared something with our board for our we have an event in November. It's we call it Cooking for Hope. It's going to be a virtual event again this year. We partner with a company called Try Hungry. They provide us a celebrity chef, someone who's worked on these Food Network, whether it be Guy Fieri, Beat Bobby Flay, these kind of, so they're personalities as well as chefs. But with the board, I put together a sample email letter. So you got to make it easier for the people who you're asking to help you, because as much as they're well-intentioned, if they have to sit down and write, there's some people who will, but so many people will, if you make it easy for them, write a letter where they can just plug in the pieces that are relevant to them. Like I said, if I knew your son when he was this age, and I've worked with his father since, and I've seen what they've done, whatever it might be, why you're proud to be part of this, and personalize it, because otherwise you need the story to catch people. And I think I'm distant from some of these people if I don't know them, but if someone is able to say, this is how it impacted me. I had a kid the same age, and they were good friends in high school, and one day Sebastian got sick. That could have been my son or my daughter, and it wasn't. And it's just sheer bad luck that was the case. We need better options. So if you make it easy for somebody and compelling as well, I mean, it's my job to try to create a compelling reason as to why you should support the cause. That to me is probably those two things are the most important: ease of use of technology, and then ease of messaging for those you're asking to donate on your behalf.
Yeah, some of the things that have been kind of interesting is we added the ability for people to add images to the top of their fundraising pages. And, the people that jump on that, the difference when the pages hit hard. And some people will put, 3 images up that you can scroll through. I saw one of someone who was raising money for one of our nonprofits, and her father, who had passed away, was a World War II veteran, and it showed him, in his military gear across the world doing different things, and that's what they were raising money for. And it was very, like, you could feel like you were there because of these images, that the way they had put them together. And I hadn't seen somebody use the carousel quite as effectively as that yet, of the images going across. So that's something else to potentially add to the toolbox, is say, hey, do you have pictures you could add? Takes 5 minutes, but I'm telling you, it's a night and day difference.
I can see that.
Yeah, so it's just right at the top of their page, they can upload that. So questions for you: that have you had any success, or do you have any feedback on incentive programs and recognition of fundraisers?
Not good ones. We really went at it hard year one, and put very reasonable to get some good swag, not like nice quarter zips, Adidas quarter zips custom, like we had really nice stuff when people achieved certain levels, but it didn't move people. Those that wanted to help didn't care about the swag. They took it because you give, but that wasn't, and others just, and we had, like I said, reasonable price points. I thought, I think it was like, if you raised $500, you get a nice running cap, and the retail value of the quarter zip was like $60. That's a pretty nice gift, and $500 for some people, maybe a lot. Others, I mean, I thought it was a reasonable, a lot of times you'll raise that much money, you get a t-shirt. So we thought we were, and that took me back because I thought we were going to get a lot more action. So since then, what I have done is just concentrated on those who are passionate about the cause. And then if you give them something after, like someone who did an Ironman on their own, a half Ironman this summer, she's just like, I want to raise money while I'm doing this. I got her, I think we had water bottles. I made a shirt for them, just a one-off shirt. Just as thanks, this person had raised, I think, $6,000. So
incredible.
It's really just, I found that work with those who are into it, converting people. I guess we're a one-person shop. I am the executive director. I have a wonderful board that volunteers, but in terms of operationally, as much as I think I can work on people and convert, like get them to buy into the peer-to-peer fundraising, what I've decided is to work with those who I know have shown the inclination to want to help, those who are into it, and done it mainly through teams of things that I participate in. Like you said, the Dolphin Cycling Challenge, the run down from Key Largo to Key West. So get people who are, and if I'm participating and that kind of drives it as well. Like, all right, I'm not just asking to raise money on the side. This is what we're doing here. Where some people sometimes may feel like I went to the 5K and I'm paying $30. That's as far as I'm going.
Yeah, I found handwritten notes to be very effective as well. Post fundraising.
Yep.
People like that.
Yep. I've done that per events, but it's impossible for me to keep up. And I don't mean that flip. I've had to sort of draw a line in the sand and say, okay, everything up to here, everyone gets email response. Everyone gets, the love. And frankly, I've gone even a step, instead of sometimes handwritten notes with some people, I've actually done a video. I do that's a good very idea. Personal, under 60 seconds, a video, just thanking them for something specific or something, so it can be very personalized. I found that to be a really effective tool as well, particularly after a big event when there's a lot of people to get back in touch with. Mm-hmm. Writing that many notes, and my penmanship is poor, so I found this to be a little more effective. But it's something we've got to get better at as we get larger. I think maybe I'll revisit the incentive component.
Yeah, the only thing that I've been a part of is basically the board. After like the big fundraiser event, you split up and everybody takes a group and everybody kind of splits that up.
Yeah.
That's the only other idea that I've seen that would help you a little bit. So do you have any pros and cons of fundraising teams and individuals participating? I've had the wide gambit there of pros and cons on individual and fundraising teams, and kind of how they generated positive and negatives for me.
Yes and yes. The events we've had, what I have tried to do is like the Dolphins and the running down to the Keys, those kind of things. I've kept them more intimate. I haven't had an open call, if you will. It's by invitation only, and so by doing that, I can have the conversation about what the expectations are. This is all, we are going to have a good time, but it's so much more fun when we actually fundraise. And I mean, I know that sounds self-serving as the executive director of a charitable organization, but I mean that sincerely. If you're going to go do the event, it feels a lot better if you hit your fundraising goals as well. I mean, so you're because yes, the objective is to have fun, but beyond that, it's really to help achieve the goals of that event for the foundation or for the charitable organization that you're supporting. So for me, that's probably been the most effective. Like last year, when we did the run to Key West, I went at it modestly. We went 4 teams of 5 people, so it was 20 people, and I just said, look, We're not registering anybody. You guys have your own teams. Each person will get a shirt and a water bottle. The fundraising goal is $500 a person. Because COVID, it was beginning, you just don't know how people are going to respond. But I felt that was reasonable. Well, 19 out of the 20 people hit the goal. We ended up raising, instead of what the minimum would have gotten us to would have been 10,000. We ended up raising, I think, $27,000. So, and only one person missed it. And it's that person. I probably should have communicated more clearly early on. Hey, yes, you can have fun, but this is not just a weekend trip. Like, you're not doing me a favor if you go and run, because I could have given that spot to somebody who actually was going to fundraise as well. So for me, it's being deliberate about the kind of people that I'm bringing into these things. Like I said, in the future, as we get larger, maybe there'll be an opportunity to develop a separate program. But for me right now, it's cultivate those that I know enjoy it, and then they become more endeared to the foundations. What I found, those who they're, I would say 19 out of the 20 said, we're doing this again next year, right?
Yeah.
And count me in. You
right.
Count me in for sure. And I'm like, wow, so if you give them some fun and that sense of thank you, because what you do is meaningful. I'd like to build more upon those, and then I need them to actually be my disciples. Is what I need.
You're getting at this fundamental idea of like what is the purpose, right? And purpose has multiple layers. It's what am I supposed to do day to day, and why am I here, and all those things. Is that, to your point, you can go run a 10K, or you can go do this van relay event with or without SebastianStrong. And what you're doing is saying, I'm layering on SebastianStrong to help you have a purpose for why you're doing this. And then the benefits are going to last multiple months, because you're meeting cool people who are like-minded, and we're going to send you updates on how the funds of SebastianStrong are being used. You'll learn a lot. To your point earlier, you'll say, well, how is it possible that this is not any better than what it was? And everybody then does a little bit that turns into a lot, right?
Yep.
And I totally get it. It's the power of the team. The other thing too that I think is building with those Ragnar events, and I'm sure Ragnar actually would love to interview you. And maybe that's something to put on there, is to talk a little bit about how you've created relationships with individuals and teams who want to come back and do it again, which is exactly why they put on the event.
Yep. Yeah. And you look, in anything you do, we all want to enjoy ourselves. This doesn't need to be, as I tell people this all the time, because sometimes people, they're afraid to talk about my son or bring up something. And what I tell them is, number one, no one has to remind me of my son. I wake up every day and I miss him dearly. And that will be forever. As long as I breathe, that will be my world. So what I can do, because life is, we all have adversities of different kinds. Granted, losing a child, I haven't found anything remotely close to that, and based on my experience in life. So life happens, we choose how we respond. And by giving people a way to do something, to give back, because again, I think to myself, what I used to do before, even when I was doing long distance racing, I partnered to raise money for a cancer foundation, because my wife had thyroid cancer when she was right shortly after we had Sebastian. My mom's a breast cancer. You can find, there's so many people have been touched by cancer, but I did that already, and it made me feel like I was already doing the Ironman. I wanted to do some good with it. And this is before anything happened with Sebastian. So I try to get people to understand it's a good time. Like I said earlier, let's have a great time, but it's even a greater time when we're making a bigger impact. And what you do matters, going to what you said earlier, Brian, to let people know that this is what this represents. We can help a family who, as I said, we help support a family in particular whose daughter right at the beginning of COVID. She was on a clinical trial at Sloan Kettering. She's here from Miami. A clinical trial at Sloan Kettering right at the beginning of COVID. Happened to be up at Sloan and basically got stuck there from late February to November, because when she would finish her treatment, if she came back to Miami, she wouldn't be able to get back to Sloan for the next treatment. So they ended up stuck there. So the financial implications of something like that are, I mean, pediatric cancer alone, the average cost of a pediatric cancer diagnosis and treatment is $833,000. So most people don't have that, or and there's different insurance. The bottom line is it's a costly venture, and they were stuck up there. So when I'm able to tell people, look, what you helped raise helped pay for groceries for a month for this family up here that's separated because mom had to stop working. She had to move to New York with her daughter. It also, when they got back, one of the things we did like a mini Make-A-Wish for them so that the family can go together and go see, there's a dolphin, there's a movie called, I don't know, the dolphin's name is Winter. It's up in Clearwater, has a prosthetic tail. So when you can say that, or where we primarily put our money is the research, that we're helping these doctors look for different solutions so that parents don't have to hear the words, we're out of options. If you can tie that together, people, I think that resonates with people. They feel like, I know where the money's going, not into the, and I think that's one of the challenges a lot of large foundations, really large foundations have, that ability to connect. Because we are the size we are, I know almost all of our donors in some way, shape, or form. And that won't always be the case. But what I have learned coming up is identifying that where it goes and how it's important, why it's important that you're doing this, never goes away.
That's a really good ending point. So now we can get a little bit to the lighter questions, the teardown. I like to call it teardown because if you ever worked an event, no one signs up for cleanup.
Yeah. Yes.
So best piece of advice you've received in regards to events?
Work with people that know what they're doing. Don't take shortcuts. Interview. Like I said, I met with the guy who founded the Miami Marathon. He's a very influential person running, and he sat me down and I sat down with him, and he gave me the right people to talk to for different things, and gave me so many great ideas. So reach out to people and don't be afraid to ask them. To me, that is critical. And then that goes as far as even connecting with race management and using the right technology for the race. Something that I learned my first year by not doing, by trying to be efficient and keeping it in our CRM, failed miserably. So I think that's huge.
Yeah, I think finding people that know what they're doing is probably good advice for just about anything.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying with this specifically, because I think there's a lack of appreciation.
Oh, for sure.
For all of the nuances that it takes, all the little things that it takes to make a race effective, like, and things that seem obvious, like getting porta potties. Like that's,
what time should they be there?
Right.
How long should they be there for?
Right.
Yeah. The minutia of events, and people that have done it many times, and then them kind of helping you build your playbook. It's really, really valuable, because you don't want to fall on your face when you got 1,000 people watching.
And to that point, I mean, there's you can pull down a 5K checklist, and that's helpful, but ultimately it's also knowing why I said asking people who know, is also people who know your running community, your city, the rules on how things are done, because that differs in different places. So I know that sounds really basic, but you'd be surprised how many people have reached out to me since to say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. I said, well, here's some things you should think about.
So what is the funniest thing you've seen at an event?
I don't know if funny, this could be my sense of humor that's a little warped, this wasn't this is when I was doing long distance races where someone prior to Ironman went into the porta potty and there was no more toilet paper, and they they made the mistake of not having their own, and it was sad. Someone coming out and saying, "Hey, I need help," and I'm like, I was next in line. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Fortunately, there was some extra in another place, and someone showed up, and I was like, oh, but that was funny, but also cringeworthy, because I was like, thank God it wasn't me.
Yeah.
I will say the lessons learned whenever I do big races, part of my kit is when I get prepped in the mornings, I have my own roll of toilet paper.
It's the Boy Scout. Be prepared.
Yep. So
what is your personal favorite event? It can be a concert, it can be, football game, whatever. Like, what do you look forward to going to each year, circling on your calendar?
That run down to Key West
that
we did this year, because I used to do it with Sebastian when they did the Ragnar race down there. So that was really special. And then the one that I do personally is every year. He passed away at right about 6 a.m. on December 29th of 2016. Every year since his passing, I have a good friend of mine who has a place in Key West and has lent it to us, so we can just get away from home and just have with my wife, my other 2 boys. And so that morning, and I guess I've only been in shape for one of them. Most of the time I haven't been training, but that morning I get up and start running at 6 a.m. I run 10 miles, whether I've run in the past 6 months or not, just to suffer, to connect with Sebastian. And it's weird. Some people ask why you do that, and I know how much pain he went through, and I can only imagine how much pain he went through. I saw it. I saw him, and that to me, that morning has become sacred. I do it alone, and I run right by where the finish line of the Ragnar was, and I spent a lot of time talking to him. So that's become there's solitude in it, but it's a beautiful experience to be that connected with him. So it's a little different, but that's my favorite event, if you will. I don't like why I have to do it, but I embrace it.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but Dave McGilvery runs the Boston Marathon course after the Boston Marathon every year.
Yeah.
He also runs his mileage in years. So if he's 60 years old, he runs 60 miles, which is...
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, different reasons, but it can't be fun to run the Boston Marathon after being the director of the Boston Marathon.
Right.
Your legs are pretty shot,
Yeah, but I think it's we're all running. There's a bunch of strange reasons to do it, but there's an element of embracing that pain and getting in your head, like working between your ears and managing that process. I enjoy it. I think it's made me a better human. I know it's made me stronger. I know it made Sebastian stronger, running, the fact that he was a runner, what he had to go through, sort of that mindset of, okay, we've got to get to here. Now we get here, like no different than in a race. We're going to push now because we're going to have heavy chemo for the next week. And then we'll have, a cool down, if you will. I mean, I know they're not direct equivalents, but that mentality of, all right, I'm going to embrace the suck, it's coming. I think that's a really powerful tool for life, because there are moments that stink for anybody, and adversity is going to come one way or another. So having a mindset on how I'm going to manage through it, because you don't necessarily, I don't know if it's overcome. I don't know. I don't want to use the wrong word, but manage through it, because we all have to manage through challenging circumstances, and having the right mindset for it is critical.
Absolutely. Well, where could people find out a little bit more about SebastianStrong and maybe get in contact with you if they had questions?
Thank you, Brian. The website is www.sebastianstrong.org. And my email address is oscar@sebastianstrong.org. Anyone can reach out to me at any point for whatever questions they may have, or wanting to know more about our relationship with Run Sign Up, more about childhood cancer. Feel free to reach out. I will respond.
Good. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Fundraising Events.
Thank you, Brian.